And now it's time for my humble opinion. If you guys missed it, that's basically what I've rebranded the Christian music review, because I thought Christian music review, I thought that was kind of boring. So I'm branding it my humble opinion, just to show that this is my humble opinion, and my word is not law, is just my opinion. A successor to IMO, Agent Serenity says, not really. Just in name, I guess. Because, I mean, this section is just my casual reviews. I mean, I guess I did a couple of those. IMO was I guess, series or show or whatever that I used to do that was just like, I don't want to review a song and I don't want to review an album, but I want to talk about something else that is relating to Christian music. So I'm going to make a show or series. I don't know what to call it. I'm gonna call it IMO, where I just kind of rant about something having to do with Christian music. Which that's kind of why I did away with those kinds of series and shows, because I felt like it boxed me in too much. So I decided to just like, you know what, a video that I make is just going to be a video about whatever I want to make or talk about. I'm doing away with Christian pop song reviews and album reviews and such. And an I'm Clifford Today video is just going to be an I'm Clifford Today video. So, yeah. Anyways, just going into a little explanation about that for those of you who don't remember my IMO videos. But anyways, got a couple things to talk about. There was a lot of music that was released in the past couple weeks. A lot of singles and such. But didn't really have any time to get into a lot of it, so I'm just picking a couple things. Especially since this first one, tobyMac's album Life After Death. I had a listen to it. It's his first album in like so many years. Because a lot of obvious things. There was the unfortunate death of his son, and there was COVID. Over the years, though, he has released the odd single every so often, and a lot of those singles actually ended up on this album. So I was interested. There were a lot of things that actually drew me to this album to listen to, most specifically some of the guest features on this album. And I kind of was just interested in what an album would sound like post tobyMac's, post Truett's passing. If you guys don't remember, when I did my top 10 worst and best Christian pop songs of the year, which, by the way, I stopped doing because of how time consuming it was. But I have decided that I'm going to do them in podcast form. So just a little announcement right there. By the end, after the end of this year, I do plan on sharing my top 10, best and worst. But it'll just be for, in podcast form. But, so in my top 10 best for Christian pop songs of 2020, I named tobyMac's 21 Years as number one. Because it's such a emotional song, and like very raw. And, it's very different from what we usually get in today's CCM. And it just moved me so much. It was like, yeah, this is great. It would be number one. So I was interested what the whole album would be like, given, what Toby has been through. And I listened to it, and I gotta say, I found myself a little underwhelmed. It's not a bad album. In fact, for me, there's a handful of songs on this album that I really like. I just found a lot of the other songs just very kind of paint by numbers for tobyMac, and kind of so and forgettable. And it's not even like paint by. I grew up listening to tobyMac. I loved Momentum and Welcome to Diverse City and Portable Sounds as a kid. I still think that Portable Sounds is actually kind of good. Momentum and Welcome to Diverse City have more like nostalgic value to me, but Portable Sounds is actually kind of pretty good. But I kind of and I miss that era of tobyMac where he would kind of get edgy. I miss songs like The Slam and Burn for You, tracks like that. Just fun rockers, just all out jams. And tobyMac has kind of toned down a little bit over the years and just gone just pretty much straight up pop. Which not all of his pop songs are bad. I mean, a lot of the best songs on this album are pretty poppy. But yeah, I just found some of the songs just kind of so. In fact, some of it kind of, not great. In fact, speaking of which, Torrin Wells is a featured artist on one of the songs. It's called Deeper, and I think that's the worst song on the album. Like, the lyricism is so, like, basic and just kind of uninspired. And that's kind of disappointing, given the fact that tobyMac has been through so much over the years. I was kind of expecting more raw and emotion and such. Yeah, I'm just not really getting it here. But I will say, I will mention some of my favorite tracks. Help Is on the Way, Maybe Midnight, which was he came out with as a single a couple years ago. And I always thought it was cool. It was pretty unique. I love the use of the background vocalists and such. I always thought it was kind of cool. Help is on the way. It's got a cool, interesting hook. It's also very funky and fun. Why does this keep happening? I don't know if you guys are hearing that, but like I keep getting my reminders on my computer. But yeah, Help Is on the Way, I think, is good. The Goodness is all right. That's been kind of the more recent hit from the album, and in fact, I think it might have reached number 1 in the charts. Also, Promised Land. I liked Promised Land as a single. And there's been a revamped version, which is interesting. It's a featured guest, Sheryl Crow, of all people. Which, I don't know. I mean, Sheryl Crow isn't Britney Spears. If it was Britney Spears, I'd be like, what? So, I don't know a whole lot about Sheryl Crow. I do want to say this, though, is just like a little aside. I used to live in a town called Kennett, Missouri. And that was Sheryl Crow's hometown. It's a very small town in southern Missouri. And Kennett, Missouri's basically only claim to fame is that it was the hometown of Sheryl Crow. Like, you drive into Kennett, and there's like the big stone welcome to Kennett sign. I kid you not, the sign says "Welcome to Kennett, hometown of Sheryl Crow." Like, they're very proud of the fact. And my sister used to work at this antique store / coffee shop. It was a weird mishmash of a coffee shop and an antique shop. Plus, I know I'm getting off topic about the tobyMac album. I'm sorry, but I think this is really interesting, and this is like the only excuse that I get to talk about this. Up on the upper level of that store, there's a little small section. I mean, maybe it's bigger now, but there's a little small section of Sheryl Crow's old clothes because her parents still live in town and they donated her old clothes to this store. And you can go to this store and you can buy Sheryl Crow's clothes. I don't know if it's still there. Like maybe they finally sold out. But yeah, they donated her clothes and you could go to that store and buy Sheryl Crow's hand-me-downs, which is really interesting. And my sister worked there. Also, my mom and my sisters were a part of this women's music club, and Sheryl Crow's mom attended that same club. So my mom knew Sheryl Crow's mom. So, anyways, she was a big deal in that town. It was kind of annoying. But anyways, Sheryl Crow is on this new revamped version of Promised Land. And I don't hate it. It's kind of weird. I don't know anything about Sheryl Crow's faith. I wouldn't be surprised because she kind of comes from that like sorta country background. I guess she's kind of more pop than anything. So I don't know anything about her faith, and we seem to be having this trend of, like known secular artists being featured guests on Christian music. And we're actually going to talk about in the next episode. We're going to talk about the more recent one that everyone knows about, Eminem and all that. So, and like there was Chris Tomlin where he had Florida Georgia Line on his music, and I don't know how I feel about it, but you know what? Hey, if Sheryl Crow is an actual professing Christian, then good on her. I don't really know anything about her life to like show that she's not. As far as I know, she's been pretty like, straightforward and non-controversial, but I guess I don't know much about her, except for living in her hometown. But anyways, she does kind of add a lot to this song that I kind of like. I liked Promised Land in the first place, and I feel like it's the only other track on this album that feels like tobyMac, sharing more of his grief with his son's passing. He doesn't get really that specific, but anyways, it's a good track, and I think Sheryl Crow does add a bit to it, so it's good. It is one of my favorites. And there's not really much else, but 21 Years is also on here, so of course I like that song. Just before it though, and this is one of the other big most talked about features on this album, is that tobyMac got the band back together again, DC Talk, which it's not the first time that this has happened since DC Talk's quote-unquote intermission, where they never came back. Or was it interlude? I can't remember. Some people may remember, but a lot of people seem to have forgotten that Michael Tate and Kevin Max did come back for tobyMac's song Atmosphere, which I love that song. There were two versions. There was just a regular tobyMac version, and then there was a second version that was a bonus track with Michael Tate and Kevin Max singing on it. So it's not the first time that DC Talk has had a reunion like this. However, this song is a little different, and I gotta say, I really like this song. The only critique that I would say is that I wish it was longer. And also, the lyrics seem a little repetitive, but either way, this song seems to be directly actually addressing DC Talk's breakup and the drama that they had about it. Because for years, people speculated on why DC Talk broke up, and I feel like people didn't really actually have much of an idea of what happened until, oddly enough, the Jesus Music documentary, which I did a video on the Jesus. I did an episode on the Jesus Music documentary, and it seems that there was some drama, specifically between Toby and Kevin. There was just a lot of differences, and like I guess Kevin wasn't showing up to shows and such, or showing up on time. So it seems like it wasn't, you know, it wasn't really a mutual, like, you know what, like it seemed that there was some drama. And so this song is kind of addressing that, where they're the lyrics are kind of like they're all about forgiveness, and you know, coming back together, and like there are lines about like love keeps no record of right or wrong. And the whole song is about, by the way, the song is called Space. I don't know if I mentioned, but they're talking about like what do we do with this space between us, you know. And there it's like the song is like a conversation. It's like we have all these differences, we have all this between us, we need to come together, like, because we're friends, you know. So I think that's great. I mean, there's still, I've talked about Kevin Max on this show, and the frustrations that I have, you know, everyone knows about his deconstruction, and some people have talked about this, about whether tobyMac should be featuring Kevin Max on this track. And I feel a little neutral in this, kind of in the same way, you know, like Derek Webb is back with Caedmon's Call, and I have my problems with Derek Webb, because both Derek Webb and Kevin Max are, you know, they're known for their deconstruction and, you know, basically apostasy. But the way I like to look at this song is that, you know, Toby, Kevin, and Michael, they're friends. You know, they have a history together. They were a band. And I think Toby gets, I'm giving Toby some room to be able to be like, you know what, you know, we were a thing. This is DC Talk. This is kind of a big moment. I don't really see any problem with, like, you know, with them getting back together and singing about this. I mean, it would be different if Toby was like all out saying, you know, like, yes, I agree with Kevin's beliefs, or I affirm them, or whatever. I don't think he's necessarily saying that, although I do get some people's arguments by giving Kevin a platform that he's affirming it. I don't know. I guess I'm giving them a little bit more grace. And also, I guess, in all honesty, listening to this song is like a nostalgic trip. Like, it doesn't sound like any DC Talk song, but it sounds like what if DC Talk came back together. It sounds like this is what it would sound like, because it sounds something similar that would be on like Supernatural, their album Supernatural. So anyways, that's kind of my feelings on it. I'm kind of like back and forth about it. But most of all, like, I just listen to it, I'm just like, yeah, DC Talk, they're back. So, still, praying for Kevin, and I'm praying that he comes back to biblical sound doctrine in his faith, and he comes back to that, yeah. So yeah, this album, and also there's tobyMac had to include his song "I'm Sorry," which, while 21 Years made #1 on my top 10 best tracks, I'm Sorry was in my top 10 worst. It's still bad. It's still a bad song. In fact, when I re-listened to this album, I couldn't get through the whole song. I had to skip it. So, and if you want to know my thoughts on it, you can watch my top 10 worst Christian pop songs. Agent Serenity says groans. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not alone in that. But yeah, anyways, I found that the album as a whole a little underwhelming, but it has some good moments to it. So I think I'm comfortable giving it like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. It's not all good. There are some songs on here. I can't remember which ones they are, where tobyMac actually sings with his there's one where he sings with his daughter, which is kind of nice, and there's some other songs that do address the whole Truett situation, but I don't find them as emotionally compelling as 21 years, unfortunately. So, but anyways, that's just my humble opinion. That's what this show is about. All right, one more, and then we're done. This one is actually a big one for me. Maylene and the Sons of Disaster. This is quite a tonal shift from tobyMac to Southern metal. Not sure if anyone is familiar with these guys, but I was a big fan of them. Maylene and the Sons of Disaster is a Southern metal group. And they were unfortunately put on hiatus when their lead singer, lead vocalist, Dallas Taylor, was in a horrific car accident. And, he was out of commission for a long time and took a long time to recover. And the future of Maylene and the Sons of Disaster was uncertain. But, through God's grace, Dallas Taylor was able to recover. And, that's awesome. In fact, I really want to do a video, like a mini documentary about Dallas Taylor and his whole recovery, because it's pretty great. So, but yeah, this new single, Burn the Witches, it's not necessarily a promise that there's going to be an album or anything, but I really hope there is. But this single is great, I think. It's got a good Maylene has had a interesting. They've gone through different evolutions. They have different sounds to each of their albums. A lot of their early albums are a lot more like hardcore and just like mainly screaming and such. And while their later albums are a lot more melodic and, dare I say, a bit more mainstream and kind of more inclusive, I guess, more accessible, which is not a bad thing for them at all, because I still love those albums. In fact, I think those ones are my more favorite ones. But this new single is kind of a mishmash of both. It's kind of like if early Maylene and the Sons of Disaster was just a little bit more melodic. And I've always loved the blend that they have between metal and country bluegrass. Basically, there's a lot of good use of banjo in this. And if you've never heard what like good country metal, Southern metal sounds like, then I recommend this. They do a great job at this. The only other band that I know that does a pretty good job at it too is The Ongoing Concept, which I think it's crazy because they also were like kind of on a hiatus, and they basically disbanded, and now they're back working on a new album, and I'm really excited about it. So anyways, Burn the Witches is basically about Dallas's accident, and the lyrics are about it. There's also been a bit of controversy about it because the song is marked as explicit, and because there's like one F word in it that, like, listening to it, like I still have a hard time catching it because it's like so subtle and like more in the background, but it's in there. You read the lyrics and it's in there. And I'm not really one. I have interesting views on like explicit language. I think that I don't get as offended about it as other people do, and I don't think that just because a person cusses that means that they're not a good Christian. Although I myself have been convicted about it lately, just being like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't cuss as much as I do. I never do on the show. I'll just be honest, but every now and again. But that's been up to my own convictions, where I've decided, you know what, I think I'm just going to be a little bit more above reproach. But, that's just me. I understand if people are upset about it, but like I personally, it doesn't bother me as much. But if it bothers you, then maybe don't check out this track. Although still, I'll say you barely hear it. But if If Dallas Taylor's, faith, if you're questioning it, I will share this post that he made when the single was released. He said, "It's finally here. I was never supposed to survive my accident, much less be able to do something like this. I hope you all can see my heart in the song and what I've been through. All I can say is there is a God that's way real and loves us greatly, even in our worst times." Sorry, I was kind of having trouble reading it because it's kind of small. But yeah, so if that tells you anything, I don't know. Check it out. I give the song like an 8 out of 10, honestly. In fact, I will say I wish it was longer. I could listen to it forever. But I really, really like it. It's such a jam. It goes so hard. And I can't wait. I really hope that there's an album. I really do. So, anyways, if you're interested, if you like metal, and if you like Southern metal, go check it out. And especially if you're a Maylene fan, this song is no disappointment at all.
Hey, so I don't know if you guys know this, but what you just watched was basically just a clip of a full podcast episode of my podcast, The I'm Clifford Today Show. So you should just go check out that whole episode. Also, while you're at it, you might as well like the video and subscribe to my channel. That'd be really nice. I mean, you're nice people, right? Okay.